Hello again, everyone. I'm Gene Valicenti. This is Beyond the Podium. We go one-on-one with the candidates. Sarah Morgenthau, Democrat candidate for the 2nd District Congressional run in Rhode Island. Question number one, Sarah, in your own words, what differentiates you from your opponents?
You know, Gene, thanks for having me on today. And the first thing I would say is we have never had a Democratic woman go to Congress, full stop, from Rhode Island. We've never had a woman in 30 years. And we need that women's perspective. And it's not just because Roe v. Wade was overturned and that has reeled everybody's world, but it's when I look into the eye of women across the 2nd Congressional District, looking into their eyes, and we understand each other, that there is just a difference about a woman's perspective, and we need that in Washington. And then I'm pretty darn experienced. I have worked at Peace Corps, working on food insecurity, health security. I've worked at Homeland Security, where I've worked on cybersecurity, domestic terrorism, counterterrorism, and most recently headed up U.S. travel and tourism at the Department of Commerce.
Okay. Pick one. What do you see as the most important issue facing Rhode Island?
I think cost of living. I think everything is too darn expensive, and folks are coming out of the pandemic. It's difficult. We have supply chain issues. We have labor shortage issues. We have, just everything being too expensive. I'm really glad about the Inflation Reduction Act. I think that's going to provide some great relief. And by the way, Alan Fung, the Republican on the other side, had put out a press release saying he was against the Inflation Reduction Act, which is about lowering the price of prescription drugs. It's about lowering costs for everyday Americans and all Rhode Islanders. And it's about the biggest investment in climate change that we have ever seen.
How are you uniquely qualified to address those issues, or that particular one? How are you qualified to do that uniquely among your others?
You know, I have the experience in Washington. I have worked across 2 administrations on issues from food insecurity, health security, cybersecurity, domestic terrorism, counterterrorism, travel and tourism. I have the relationships and the expertise cross-cutting in many different areas, and the ability to bring people together to understand that there's complicated issues and that we need to keep them devoid of partisan politics and really focus on what do we need to do to deliver for folks here.
Right. Is there an issue that you felt one way on but then changed your mind on over time? An example of a policy that you've changed your point of view in the last 20 years. Anything come to mind?
Yeah, in 2013, the National Intelligence Director addressed Congress and for the first time said that guns and bombs in the hands of terrorists were not our most important national security threat, but that cybersecurity was our most important threat. That actually our keyboards is what we had to watch out for. That was a huge change from the events of 9/11, and I was at the Department of Homeland Security, and it's when we really started to work on what do we need to do to defend our country from cyber warfare and from attacks on our systems and on all the things that keep us going, including our critical infrastructure.
What question do you wish someone would ask you, and why? Anything come to mind?
I love when folks ask me about what do the voters think. To me, that's what it's all about. It's staying local, it's understanding their issues, and making sure that they have a voice, a fresh perspective, a woman's perspective, a mother's perspective, an experienced woman's perspective in Washington who can deliver for them. But ultimately, it's about what we're all about here, because I believe that together, all of us can get great things done.
Who is your political hero? Do you have one?
Eleanor Roosevelt, she was very good friends with my grandmother, Eleanor Morgenthau. The 2 women were 2 great women behind 2 great men, President Roosevelt and my grandfather, who was Secretary of Treasury to Franklin Roosevelt. And that, along with my mother, who was very gutsy, an immigrant to this country, is what drives me. Public service, giving back, is so important. It's a part of my fabric and my family's fabric, and so many people here in Rhode Island.
Final question. What is the best advice you've ever received?
People have said to me throughout my career, you can't do it. The problems are too hard. And what I say is, absolutely not. We can together bring the right people together. We can fight like heck, and we can get great things done. And today, Jean, in these really difficult times, when we're coming out of the pandemic, when things are too expensive, when folks are really reeling, we need that attitude in Washington more than ever.
Okay.